The day my HOA president told me my grandfather's private road belonged to the neighborhood, now she said it with a clipboard and a smile. "It's a community easement now, Colt," she said. "Open it willingly, or this gets difficult." I looked at her, looked at the road my granddad carved out by hand, and thought, "Lady, you are about to have a rough season." My name's Colt Briggs. I grew up on 14 acres in rural central Ohio. Clay Creek, mud mosquitoes, old equipment, and work. But it was ours. My grandfather Earl Briggs bought that land in 1961, built the house himself, and cut a gravel road from County Route 14 back to the house. That road was private when he built it, private when my father inherited it, and private when it came to me after Dad died too young at 62. I moved back home at 34, started a small excavation business out of the pole barn, and figured life would stay simple, work hard, mind my business. Then Harwick Pines showed up. The county approved a subdivision beside my land in the late 90s. 64 homes, neat lawns, and an HOA full of people who'd discovered the thrill of telling other adults what color their mailbox should be. They had their own entrance, their own road, their own rules. Fine by me. Problem was, the developer had apparently told buyers they could use my road as a shortcut to the county route. Not with an easement, not with permission, not with paperwork, just a promise about land he didn't own. For years, people used it anyway. I put up signs, waved folks off, told myself I'd handle it later. That was my first mistake. If you tolerate trespassing long enough, some people start calling it tradition. Then Renata Voss got elected HOA president, and that woman treated neighborhood politics like military command. One spring morning, I got a letter from the HOA saying they had voted at a meeting I was never invited to designate my private road as a shared community access easement. I called Harriet Sloan. Harriet is a property lawyer built like a fence post and about as easy to bend. She read the letter, gave this amused exhale, and said, "Colt, this is not a legal instrument. This is an opinion in a nice envelope." She sent them a cease and desist. The road was private. No easement existed. Stop using it. Stop claiming otherwise. Renata wrote back with 4 pages of nonsense and a mangled reading of Ohio law. She claimed the neighborhood had used the road for over 20 years, so now they had a prescriptive easement. Harriet explained that because I'd objected, posted signs, and tolerated use while saying no, it wasn't an easement. It was trespassing with confidence. Renata ignored that and escalated. She filed complaints, started telling residents I was creating a safety issue, and every morning I still heard tires crunching over my grandfather's gravel like they already owned the place. I called the sheriff. A deputy came out, looked at my deed, nodded, then told me it was civil in nature. I asked if he knew Renata. He paused one beat too long and said, "She lives 3 houses down from me, sir." So I stopped hoping somebody else would fix it and started building my own case. Trail cameras went up at both ends of the road. Then one Saturday, I looked out the kitchen window and saw a dozen HOA residents marching down my road carrying Marigold's mulch and a hand-painted sign that said, "Harwick Pines Community Path." I let them finish. Then I got on my tractor, pulled that sign out of the ground, loaded it into my truck, photographed everything, and sent it straight to Harriet as evidence. I left the Marigolds. They were innocent. That was when the story started turning. Warren Steck, a retired football coach, called me and said he'd objected to the HOA vote from the start and had notes to prove it. Dolores Farr, who worked in county land records, called to say she'd checked my deed and thought Renata was playing a dangerous game. Then Fetch Calloway, a landscaper in the subdivision, called to apologize because his wife had joined the flower stunt without knowing the real story. Within 2 weeks, my cameras had logged 847 separate trips across my road. Harriet looked at the printout and smiled. "You're building a very clean case," she said. "I'm building a gate," I told her. She paused, then said, "Get a survey first." Around then, Renata made her smartest lie. She told the neighborhood I was about to block the only emergency access route to the subdivision, that people could die because I cared more about property than safety. It sounded plausible. But Dolores sent me screenshots, and I sent the fire chief a packet showing my road had never been designated for emergency use. Chief Tuttle called me the next morning. "Mr. Briggs," he said, "whoever told them that wasn't being straight with them." No, sir. They sure weren't. Then Dolores found the thing that cracked the whole mess open. She'd been digging through the original subdivision approval files. Turns out the county had required the developer to provide a certified secondary access route before Harwick Pines could get final approval. In 1998, the developer filed an affidavit saying that route existed. And the route he listed was my grandfather's road, our parcel number, our land, no easement, no consent, no paperwork, nothing. I sat there at my kitchen table staring into that gray Ohio dusk. This wasn't just HOA nonsense anymore. The subdivision had been approved on the back of a lie. The developer had used our private road to satisfy a county requirement he had no right to satisfy. Renata's whole claim wasn't just wrong, it was built on fraud. Then Harriet found the second twist. Renata had petitioned the County Planning Commission to consider taking my road as a public necessity easement, and sitting on the subcommittee that would review that request was her husband, Gerald Voss. After that, we stopped reacting and started arranging. Harriet amended the complaint. Dolores certified the county records. Warren proved the HOA vote had violated its own notice rules. Fetch helped me walk the surveyed line so the gate placement would be exact. Then I called Dex Hamill. I ordered a matte black steel gate spanning the full width of the road. Heavy hinges, simple welded lettering. Private property, no trespassing. Briggs Lot 7, Parcel 09-4. Meanwhile, Renata made another mistake. She tried to buy Fetch off with the HOA landscaping contract if he distanced himself from me. What she didn't know was Ohio is a one-party consent state, and Fetch had his phone recording in his jacket pocket. Harriet listened to that audio and said, "Oh, that's going in the file." The night before the gate went up, Renata filed for an emergency restraining order. Harriet went into court with the survey, the fraud packet, the Planning Commission conflict, and the recording from Fetch. The judge denied the request that same evening. Thursday morning before sunrise, Fetch and I set the posts in frozen gravel. By 8:30, the gate was hanging level across my grandfather's road. I slid the padlock through the latch and snapped it shut. That click, man, that was music. 17 minutes later, the first silver SUV came rolling down from the subdivision side, like routine itself had the legal right of way. Then it rounded the curve, stopped in front of that matte black gate, and just sat there idling. The driver leaned out, read the sign, then backed up slow and disappeared. I stood there with coffee in my hand and watched entitlement put itself in reverse. That night, the HOA called an emergency meeting. Packed room, folding chairs, bad fluorescent lights. Renata stood at the front with her binder open, still trying to project authority like volume could overpower evidence. I sat in the third row with Harriet and Fetch. Warren was near the front. Petra Mosley from the county paper was off to the side with a notebook. At first, people blamed me. Then Harriet stood up. She didn't rant. She just laid it all out, the fraudulent 1998 affidavit, the false emergency access claim, the invalid HOA vote, Gerald's conflict, the recorded witness interference, the denied restraining order, one document after another, one fact after another, until the room went dead quiet. Then Harriet placed the settlement on the table. Rescind the fake easement. Acknowledge the road is private. Remove the signs. Pay $12,000 in legal fees. Sign tonight and the civil action stops there. Don't sign and the county gets the full fraud package and the newspaper runs Monday. Renata started to say something. Then Gerald spoke from the back of the room, quiet as winter. Sign it. She turned around like she couldn't believe that voice came from her own husband. He didn't look at her. The HOA's lawyer leaned in, whispered something quick, and Renata, stiff, pale, furious, picked up the pen. She signed at 8:14 p.m. After that, things unraveled fast. Gerald resigned from the Planning Commission 2 weeks later. Renata didn't run for re-election. Warren got elected HOA president, and the new board's first move was formally recording that my road was private and always had been. The county opened an inquiry into the developer's affidavit after Petra's story ran, and she wrote it the way it deserved to be written, not as some petty feud, but as what it really was, a family property, right? Trampled by fraud and arrogance. The gate is still there now. Been there almost 2 years. I swapped the padlock for a keypad after the first winter and gave codes to Chief Tuttle Warren, one neighboring landowner with a proper access agreement, and Fetch. And the funny part, the marigolds came back in the spring. I left them. They didn't do anything wrong. Somewhere in the middle of all that, I learned something I wish I'd understood sooner. People can take your patience, build a fantasy on top of it, and then act offended when you finally close the gate. That's the ugly truth about little power, HOA power, committee power, clipboard power. It grows best where decent people keep assuming the other side will eventually do the right thing. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes the only language greed understands is a survey line, a court filing, and a lock clicking shut. So let me ask you this. When a whole community benefits from a lie for years, are they victims when the truth finally costs them something? Or is that just karma arriving right on time? Tell me where you land in the comments. Was I right to lock that road, or would you have done something different? And if you've ever had an HOA, a neighbor, or anybody in a little bit of power mistake your patience for permission, I want to hear your story too.